This is Jordan Dawson, and this is Problems Unanswered. For many years, there's been difficulties within the court and justice system, such as corruption, DNA testing, and many more. However, there is a constant question, one in which including are most trials fair? Many people have their opinions about this, considering their experience or a family member experience with the court. I have researched this topic, including that most trials are indeed not fair. This is a concerning problem because it affects how people are convicted and rather if they're even guilty or not. And if they are not guilty but convicted of being guilty, this affects their families and their lives, resulting in a devastating outcome, including years of imprisonment, hopelessness, and loneliness. Now, you are probably wondering why trials are unfortunately unfair. According to Anna Swanson, a reporter for Washington Post article, she says, unquote, unsettling research into the psychology of the courtroom decisions has shown that our personal backgrounds, unconscious biases about race, gender and appearance, and even the time of day play a more important role in outcomes than the actual law. Off quote. These are the thoughts and behavior of the people on behalf of the court system. So now, if you're telling me that the time of day determines if you're convicted, then that is crazy. I understand how race, religion, gender, and appearance play in whether if someone gets convicted or not, which is also unfair. So if someone was convicted because they looked a certain way, then that is unfair because that individual may have nothing to do with the crime or have few efficient evidence. Also, to consider the race aspect of this, African Americans are most likely to be convicted because of appearance and stereotypes, and often the biases in the court system. The Innocent Project provided a case in which an African American man by the name of Cornelius Dupree was falsely convicted of a rape and robbery and sentenced to 75 years in prison. It happened on November of 1979 when this crime took place. It was reported that two black men approached a young couple at a store and stole their car. As this happened, one of the men held the young man at gunpoint while the other man raped the female victim. When this was reported, the cops went to investigate. The cops approached Cornelius Dupree and Anthony Masonville on the street and arrested them because they claimed that they fit the description of the men. Little did they know, Cornelius and Anthony had nothing to do with the crime. Later, in the investigation, the woman who was raped had to point out who raped her. However, during the crime, she didn't have her glasses on and she couldn't see her attacker clearly. But during the interrogation, she had to point out her attacker and she claimed it was Dupree. So now that you've heard what I said about the glasses, does this make any sense? How is a woman aimed to point her attacker but couldn't see who attacked her in the first place? This is weird because they convicted Dupree without much evidence. Was it because of his race, or was it because they gave up? We don't know, but what we do know is that it was an act of injustice and unfairness in the court system. Another case that you may have heard was the Trayvon Martin.
Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Police, I just heard a shot right behind my house.
Shock, confusion, and fear. You can hear it in the voice of every 911 caller in the final moments of Trayvon Martin's young life.
He just said he shot him. Yes, the person is dead, laying on the grass.
Just because he's laying on
Oh,
the
my
ground.
God.
February 26, 2012, 17-year-old Trayvon Martin buys some Skittles and a bottle of iced tea, walks through a gated community of townhomes where he's staying with his father. That's when he catches the attention of neighborhood watch volunteer George Zimmerman.
They always get away.
That's Zimmerman's first impression watching Trayvon Martin walking alone.
This guy looks like he's up to no good or he's on drugs or something.
Less than a minute later, Zimmerman gets out of his car.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
But then, just a few minutes later, there's another call.
911, do you need police, fire, medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
A 17-year-old boy who was shot by neighborhood captain police by the name of George Zimmerman in 2012. This occurred when Zimmerman was in a neighborhood and he called the police because the boy looked suspicious. As the cops told him to stay dispatched, he refused and entered the store. As he got in the store, he confronted the boy with a gun and they got into a physical altercation, and then Zimmerman shot Trayvon. According to Charles M. Blow of New York Times, he raises the questions, unquote, why did Zimmerman find Trayvon suspicious? Why did he pursue the boy when the 911 operator instructed him not to? How is it self-defense if you are the one in pursuit? Off quote. These are the questions that remain tied to the case. As you may know, Zimmerman was found not guilty at the trial. This is surprising considering that he initiated the fire and there was no real reason in confronting Trayvon because he didn't have a weapon or anything on him that may have raised questions, except a bag of Skittles and an iced tea. Trayvon was clearly not a threat until he was confronted with a gun pointing at him, in which he would be scared and confused and maybe have a reason to go off on Zimmerman. Many people want to know why others may think that trials are not fair or is fair. Many people may think trials are fair because they never experienced it for themselves or the examples they witnessed was a fair trial. According to Heather Mason Kiefer from Gallup, they've assembled an experience asking 1,000 callers, men and women, on what they think about trials. The outcome resulted in most saying that they were fair or somewhat fair. This, however, may not be true regarding most cases because the evidence that she gathered from polls only is a small percent, given that it was only 1,000 of the millions of citizens in the United States. Also, if someone never experienced the trial, they cannot say if it was fair or not, so they stand neutral. So even though people may have their opinions on whether trials are fair or not, giving the evidence from decades or decades of unfair trials, there is really no way someone could say that trials are indeed fair. So now that we know as a community and a nation that most trials are unjust and unfair, we can stop this by making a change. We could have a more diverse court system and jury. Try to put down one's stereotypes of one's race or religion. There are many opportunities and things we can do to end this epidemic in the court system. What do you suppose we can do to put end to this unfairness in our court system?